When we think about the cutting edge of military tech, we often picture a few, well, usual suspects.
hmm The big players.
Right. But there's a really fascinating story developing in France right now. They seem quite serious about developing their own advanced rocket artillery.
Like a European HIMARS equivalent almost.
Exactly. They're actually aiming to test their version in, what, 2026?
That's the plan, yeah.
But here's the twist, maybe. Before this big push for their own system, France was apparently taking a pretty close look at India's Pinaka.
The MBLRS, yeah. The multiple barrel rocket launcher system.
Right. So today on the deep dive, that's our mission, to understand this strategic pivot, you could call it.
What's driving this sudden focus on rocket artillery? Why look at Pinaka? And then why the shift to a homegrown European option?
Precisely. It really pulls back the curtain on modern defense thinking and, international cooperation, or maybe the limits of it.
And we've got some good sources for this.
We do. Reports from Defense News, mainly, and also some interesting comments from French Brigadier General Stéphane Richoux, quoted in the Eurasian Times.
It's quite revealing how quickly global events can, well, force a rethink of strategy, isn't it?
Absolutely. It shows a nation seeing a gap, a capability gap, and then actively looking for solutions.
Both abroad and, importantly, at home.
Definitely. And the big catalyst, it seems pretty clear, is what some are calling the return of, well, conventional warfare to Europe.
Ukraine.
Yeah, the war in Ukraine. It just hammered home the importance, the raw effectiveness of modern artillery.
Oh, absolutely. You saw the impact of those HIMARS strikes.
Game-changing, almost.
Yeah.
Their ability to hit key Russian targets, logistics, command posts, it really shifted things on the ground.
It really did. And that performance, the precision, coupled with range, it was a wake-up call. It showed that even with drones and cyber warfare, sheer firepower, smart firepower, is still crucial.
Concentrated few minds in defense ministries, I bet.
France included, no doubt. That ability HIMARS showed, hitting valuable targets deep behind lines with, relatively speaking, minimal collateral damage. That's the kind of capability France is now pursuing.
And their current system, the LRU, the Lancerkets Unitaire, that's basically an older American design they updated, right?
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
An upgraded M270 MLRS.
And the reports say it's heading towards its end of service life around 2027.
That's the timeline mentioned, yes. So it's not just that they want a new system, they actively need one.
The need is becoming pretty urgent then.
Exactly. The LRU, it was good for its time, but it likely doesn't have the range, the advanced tech, maybe even the mobility needed now. This obsolescence basically forced France to explore options.
Which led them down initially what looked like maybe two paths at once. Look overseas, but also start building your own.
Precisely. Assess the market, see what India or others offer, but also kickstart your own domestic program.
Okay, let's dig into that domestic program first. This is the Frappé Longue Portée Terrestre program, FLP-T.
That's the one, FLP-T.
Sounds pretty ambitious. They're talking long-range tactical strikes, maybe up to 150 kilometers.
That's the stated goal, yes. A significant step up.
And it's not just one company. There are two big groups, these consortiums collaborations between major defense firms competing.
Correct. You've got Thales working with Ariane Group on one side.
Okay.
And then Safran partnered with MBDA on the other.
And both are developing prototypes, aiming for tests in mid-2026. That feels fast.
It is a tight schedule.
Yeah.
It really speaks to the urgency France feels about getting this capability fielded.
Having two teams compete, does that speed things up or spread the risk?
Both, probably. It encourages different ideas, different tech approaches. Competition can definitely drive innovation and maybe lead to a better end product.
And the money behind this,
Aye.
it's serious, right? 600 million mentioned?
Yeah, about what, $660 million US allocated in their big 2024-2030 defense plan just for FLP-T.
That's a major commitment. And they have targets, like equipping a battalion.
Yes, the goal is 26 systems for a battalion by 2035, but with at least 13 of those ready by 2030.
So a phased approach. And they've already started funding it, apparently, through these innovation partnerships back in November.
Right. It shows this isn't just a wish list item. The investment is real. The wheels are turning. It signals how high a priority this is strategically for France.
Okay, let's look at one of those competing teams, the Safran and MBDA one. Their system is called Thundart.
Gundart, yes.
They seem to be pushing a specific angle, talking about mature and mastered subsystems. But the big claim is that it would be the only rocket system designed and built entirely in Europe.
That's a key selling point they're emphasizing. Independence.
Independence from U.S. arms regulations, like ITAR, and autonomous manufacturing within Europe. Why is that so important now?
Well, in the current geopolitical climate, that idea of European strategic autonomy, especially in defense, carries a lot of weight.
Being able to build it and use it without asking permission, essentially.
Pretty much. Controlling your supply chain, your production timeline, not being subject to potential export holes or political pressure from outside Europe, it offers a big strategic advantage.
It fits that bigger picture of Europe wanting more self-reliance.
Exactly. Relying on non-European suppliers, especially for critical systems like this, can mean delays, dependencies, even political strings attached. Thundart positions itself as the purely European solution.
But it's not a done deal for Thundart, or the other team for that matter.
No, not at all.
The French government is waiting for these demonstrators, the prototypes, to be tested in 2026.
Right. They'll evaluate performance before deciding.
And interestingly, the reports still mention the possibility of buying off-the-shelf equipment. So they haven't totally closed the door on buying something already available.
Which is smart, really. Keep your options open. It lets them compare the domestic prototypes against proven systems on the market.
Ensures they get the best fit for their needs.
And it keeps the pressure on the French companies to deliver something truly competitive, doesn't it?
Okay, so that paints a picture of France's current push for its own system. But let's rewind, as you said, to that earlier interest in India's Pinaka. This part is really intriguing.
It is.
We had Brigadier General Stéphane Richoux from the French Army actually visiting India last year, and he explicitly said they were evaluating Pinaka alongside other top systems.
He didn't mince words.
No. He even said, and this is a quote, "More than a business partnership, this is cooperation." And he praised the Indian defense industry as very effective.
That's quite a statement from a senior French officer. A major European military power seriously looking at an Indian artillery system that tells you something about India's defense progress.
It really does. What might they have seen in Pinaka specifically compared to their old LRU?
Well, for starters, it was designed to replace the old Soviet-era Geo-8 systems India used. The basic Pinaka Mk1 has a range of, 38 kilometers?
Yep, 38 kilometers, and a very fast firing rate.
12 rockets in under 45 seconds from one launcher. Imagine a whole battery 72 rockets raining down very quickly.
That's serious saturation fire, and it has that shoot and scoot capability.
Crucial. Absolutely crucial on today's battlefield. With counter-battery radar and drones everywhere, you fire quickly and then you move. Fast. You don't want to be where those rockets just launched from.
Minimizes exposure, increases survivability.
Massively. So Pinaka offers intense firepower, speed of deployment, and that vital survivability tactic.
And India hasn't just left it at the Mk1, have they? They're working on upgrades.
Right. Enhanced versions pushing the range out significantly, maybe 60, even up to 90 kilometers.
Both unguided and guided versions, too, it seems.
Which adds precision. So it's a system that's clearly evolving, staying current technologically.
The reports also mentioned its flexibility. The launcher can work alone, fire in different directions without repositioning, operate manually, remotely, or fully autonomously.
That adaptability is key for modern systems. Being able to integrate into different command structures, operate with less manpower in certain modes, it adds a lot of tactical value.
And Pinaka even got an export success, right, with Armenia.
Yes, that was significant. Reportedly, India's first major indigenous defense export, with very little imported content.
That must have boosted its profile internationally, showed it was a viable, perhaps cost-effective option on the global market.
Absolutely. It validates the system's maturity and reliability, and India's manufacturing capability. Likely caught France's eye even more.
But despite all that interest and the strong existing defense ties between France and India, Rafale jets, Scorpene submarines.
Big deals, yeah.
There haven't been any real updates on France actually buying Pinaka.
No, it seems to have gone quiet on that front.
And the most likely reason, as we discussed, is the momentum behind their own program, the FLP-T.
It seems that way. The focus shifted inwards.
So if we zoom out again, look at the bigger picture, the geopolitics, what does this whole episode tell us?
Well, France prioritizing FLP-T really highlights that trend. We talk about European defense autonomy, wanting to be less reliant on others, particularly the U.S.
The sources hinted at the Trump administration's impact, His calls for NATO allies to spend more, his stance on, say, support for Ukraine.
Exactly. Those actions seem to have spurred European nations, France especially, to really think hard about self-sufficiency in key defense areas. If you can't always rely on your main ally, you need your own capabilities.
And France, with its strong defense industry, is sort of positioning itself to lead that charge in Europe.
It appears so, taking a leading role in European rearmament and strategic independence.
Because there are other options out there for rocket artillery, aren't there?
Oh, yes. Besides the U.S. HIMARS, there's the Israeli PLS system, South Korea's Chunwoo, several capable systems available.
But France developing its own, the FLP-T, it offers a specifically European alternative.
Precisely.
Right.
And that aligns perfectly with the EU's push for members to spend defense budgets within the bloc, strengthening European industry, reducing external dependence.
And if FLP-T is successful, France could potentially sell it to other European allies, right?
Absolutely. Offering a high-tech, European-made, ITAR-free alternative to HIMARS or others. That could significantly reshape the European defense landscape.
Creates a whole new dynamic in the market.
It could become a cornerstone capability for European forces, fostering both technological advancement and that strategic autonomy they're seeking.
Okay, so let's try and summarize this deep dive. France is clearly set on getting a modern MLRS capability.
No doubt about it.
They definitely saw potential in India's Pinaka, which says a lot about India's growing defense capability.
Clear recognition, yes.
But ultimately, the shifting geopolitics, the strong push for European autonomy may be spurred by U.S. actions, and the sheer effectiveness shown by systems like HIMARS in Ukraine. All that seems to have really cemented their decision to go all in on their own domestic FLP-T program.
That seems to be the trajectory. Which brings us to a key thought, especially for our listeners, perhaps those preparing for the UPSC exams. When you consider everything the tech specs, the strategic drivers, what do you think are the longer-term implications?
Yeah, implications for European defense cooperation, for the global arms market, especially if France succeeds with its own HIMARS analog.
It forces you to think about that balance, doesn't it, between developing your own national capabilities versus relying on international partnerships.
Definitely something to ponder. And for UPSC aspirants, this whole discussion touches on so many relevant themes.
Oh, absolutely. Geopolitical shifts, defense technology advancements, India-France relations. It's all in there. Really crucial stuff for both mains and even potentially prelims.
And remember, our discussion today drew heavily from that article in the Eurasian Times.
A very insightful piece.
So, if you found this deep dive useful, and if you want to keep up with important topics like this, especially for UPSC prep, please do hit that like button, subscribe to the deep dive.
Definitely leave a comment if you have more questions or thoughts. We're here doing these daily discussions to help you stay informed on the really crucial current topics.